Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it's an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, some things going on with TV, whatever it is you guys want to talk about. That's what Open Mic is for. On the John Campea Show in the mornings, we leave a little bit of time for some open questions, but that's all we do here on Open Mic. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into it. And the first question today comes to us from Curtis Lopez, who writes, "Saw Blockers last night and laughed my guts out. Looks like we're in for a great weekend long with A Quiet Place. Who wins the box office this weekend?" Yeah, I liked Blockers. I had a good time with Blockers. I laughed a good amount of time. I didn't love Blockers. To me, it wasn't quite as funny as it could have been. Some of the jokes fell a little bit flat, and some of that had to do with John Cena not quite being ready to lead a film. You could tell, but still funny. And John Cena was still funny in it. Ike Barinthal, I think that's how you say his last, the third guy. You know, you got Leslie Mann, John Cena, and I believe Ike Barinthal? You keep forgetting his last name. This dude, he was great in it. I quite enjoyed the movie, but I didn't love it. You know, I wanted to like it a little bit more, but it's still good. I give it a thumbs up. I recommend people see it. Quiet Place is the better movie, in my opinion. Quiet Place, I think, will also win the weekend. I think Blockers was tracking like 15 to 20. I think Quiet Place was tracking around 25. So we'll see. I think Quiet Place will take the weekend, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, next up is Curtis Lopez. And Curtis Lopez writes, "What's your favorite romance movie?" What's a favorite romance movie? I don't know. I don't watch a lot of straight up romance films. Let me look at something here. I mean, most of the romance movies I watch are romantic comedies. Like, stuff like The Notebook. Or, I mean, you could say something like Sleepless in Seattle, but I consider that romantic comedy. So you could go Notebook. You could talk about, I mean, I don't know. What's a true straight up romance film? I'm not quite sure there's many I would really like. Blue is the Warmest Color is a damn good film. I would probably qualify that one as a romance film. Yeah, I don't know. Pure romance film? I can't even think of many off the top of my head. So there's certainly not a lot that I particularly love, or else they pop up at the top of my head. So it's a good question. What about you guys? What are some of your favorite pure romance films? Jump into the comments section and let us know what you think. All right, next one up. Luna Comics writes, "I wish I can share my story writing ideas with, but I'm asking you if it's okay for me to send them through Super Chat." Probably not. And honestly, I do get a lot of writers who send me their scripts or ask me to read their scripts, which I don't know why. I think just because I live in Los Angeles doesn't mean I can connect your script to anybody. And I certainly never would send anybody's script on to somebody else. So probably not a good idea. And I mean, this whole format here is to talk about movies and the things we can all share and understand and talk about. And I don't think this is the best place, Luna, for you to send story ideas to. That's just not what this show is per se. So there are probably a lot better places and a lot better people you could send those to. I'm not the guy. I'm simply not the guy to send that stuff to. All right, next up, Miles Pardo writes, "A Quiet Place, your 2018 number one film or not?" Not sure. Got to think about it. There are, well, I mean, right now it's down between Ready Player One and Black Panther. And actually, you know what? I'm not even sure if I can say that. Hold on a second. Give me one moment here. It's down between Black Panther, Ready Player One, and A Quiet Place. They're my three favorite films of the year so far. Whether Quiet Place takes that number one spot, I'd have to think about it. I mean, I just saw the movie for the first time last night, so I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I love it. Absolutely love it. But I need to marinate on it for a little bit. So I'm not willing to say that it's my favorite film of 2018 so far. I'm not willing to say it's not. That's something I gotta just marinate on a little bit more. But that should tell you how much I love it. I mean, the movie's fantastic. All right, next one up. Luna writes, What's the best zombie movie with good zombie slaughter? I don't know. I mean, I think my all-time favorite zombie movie is probably Shaun of the Dead. I love that movie. It's a great comedy. It's a great straight-up zombie movie. I mean, it's fantastic. Then there's that, what was it, 2004, 2005, 2006, Dawn of the Dead. I really enjoy that one too. I'm not a huge zombie genre guy. It takes a lot for me to like a zombie property. I find them all to be very cookie cutter and exactly the same. One's exactly the same as the next. I think that's probably why I love Shaun of the Dead so much, because it was such a different take on it. But as far as like, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by good zombie slaughter, but I'll just say my favorite zombie movies are probably Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead are probably my favorite ones. Elam Rem writes, is McGregor's UFC career is over with all this news? Yeah, for those of you who didn't hear about it, Conor McGregor, I heard about this, that Conor McGregor like stormed the Barclays Center after like the UFC. There's a big UFC card on Saturday, and they had like a press conference today. And Conor McGregor apparently stormed the press conference, or the building where the press conference was, and all the UFC stars were on their buses going back to the hotels, and like Conor McGregor showed up with like 20 goons and started throwing things at the buses, and apparently like he threw like a bike rack through a window and it cut another guy's face up who's in the hospital now. And there were female fighters on the bus too, and a couple of them, like Rose was really shook up apparently, according to Dana White. He could have really hurt somebody. And I am a Conor McGregor fan. Everybody knows that. If you watch me for any period of time, I love Conor McGregor. I cheer for Conor McGregor. I'm done with Conor McGregor. Because at first, when I first heard about it, I thought it was just like a promo stunt. Because, you know, Khabib and Holloway are fighting on Saturday. The winner of that's going to be the new lightweight champion. And eventually down the line, Khabib, who's going to win that fight, I think, Khabib's going to have to fight McGregor. So I thought when I first heard about this, that this was just a publicity stunt to start building up the hype for that fight that would probably come in September. But then I watched the interviews and I saw some of the footage and I'm like, no, this guy Conor McGregor is just a little piece of shit. And now I feel bad that I was ever a fan of the guy. I'm done. I'm done being a fan of Conor McGregor. I hope he never fights in the UFC again. I hope that $100 million that he made on that circus show that he did with Floyd Mayweather, I hope he gets sued for all of it. Because you know he's going to have massive amount of lawsuits against him now. I hope he loses every penny. I hope he loses every penny he ever made, and I hope he's never allowed to fight in the UFC again. I'm done. Like, anybody that does something like that, like, you put people's lives at risk. Like, you could hurt people. And so, for me, Conor McGregor's dead. He's completely dead to me. I'll go so far as this. Anybody who connected with the UFC watching this, I will let you know right now. I will never watch one of your cards if you put Hugh McGregor. That would be a fight. If you put Conor McGregor on a card, I'm simply not watching that card. I'm not buying that card. I'm not saying I'm going to ditch the UFC. I love the UFC. I'm going to watch the UFC. But if you have Conor McGregor on a card, I'm not going to buy that UFC. And I'm going to plead with my audience not to support anything that you put Conor McGregor on. You know, this isn't something like John Bones Jones, who's just an idiot and doping up and whatever. He's just doing that to himself. This was a guy who brought 20 goons with him, started destroying buses with people on it, including women. Women and just not all fighters. I mean, some publicists from whatever, but there were women on the bus as well. And he's throwing things, sent one guy to the hospital who was just on the bus sitting there minding his own business, has no relation with Conor McGregor. This thing comes through the window. His face gets all cut up. He's hospitalized. He's supposed to be fighting on the card on Saturday. It's supposed to be a big thing for his career. He's out of that now. As far as I'm concerned, Conor McGregor is a little piece of shit, and I've been cheering for him. I've been a fan of his. As far as I'm concerned now, dude's dead to me. I hope he's never allowed to fight in the UFC again. This is too much. Again, this is different from an idiot John Bones Jones things where, granted, he's an idiot and he's a loser, but he's just basically doing it all to himself, mostly, right? Like, you can get over that stuff and there's room for second chances there and all that kind of crap. What this was different. And I'm done with them. as a fan. And if you still love him, that's great. That's totally up to you. If you still love him and you want to cheer for him and all that kind of stuff, to me, he's a slimy little piece of shit. Yesterday, I was a big fan. Today, I'm done with him. Completely done with him. So, yeah, I think his UFC, I saw an interview with Dana White, and he was pissed. And I don't know if they're ever going to work with this guy again. I don't want them to work with this guy again. I really don't. So I hope he's done. I hope he's finished. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Jake Osei, who writes, would you be okay if Infinity War had a comedic tone in the movie? Absolutely, as long as it works. I'm okay if they have a deadly serious tone and it works. I'm okay if they have a slow pace and it works. I'm okay if they have a rapid pace and it works. I'm okay if they have a comedic tone and it works. I'm okay, whatever is going to make this movie the best movie it can be. And every movie's different. Like Civil War, they went a little bit more serious and that worked great. Thor Ragnarok, they made a little bit more, they went more comedic, worked great. I mean, and by the way, Thor Ragnarok proved that you can have a comedic tone and yet still be incredibly dark and incredibly high stakes. You know, the amount of people that died in Thor Ragnarok, Odin dies, Asgard is destroyed, Thor loses Mjolnir and he loses his eye. Like, you can have a marriage of comedic tone with, you know, really dark things and really high stakes on the line, and you can have a movie. That's the mixture that worked great for Thor Ragnarok. They had a different blend that worked for Civil War. They had a different blend that worked for Ant-Man. They had a different blend that worked for Winter Soldier. I mean, so yeah, it's whatever they do. I think movie fans rob themselves when they preordain in their own heads what this movie needs to do. You're just robbing yourself when you do that. I'm just approaching Infinity War hoping for a great movie. Whether that means it's great because it's got incredibly great laughs in it, great action, heavy themes, dire consequences, amazing action. Look, whatever it is they choose to do to make the movie a great movie is fine with me as long as it ends up being a great movie. And I don't think any quote-unquote fan should go and say, if they make it funny, I'm not going to like it. Well, then you're going in with a closed mind and you're an idiot. You know, if they go too dark, I'm not going to like it. Well, why don't you go in and watch it first? And if it's dark, see if the darkness works for you. If they do it like, I mean, just all you're doing is just screwing yourself. When you preordain in your head what this movie needs to be this, then you need to get over yourself a little bit. Go in and watch it. Because maybe you'll love it, and maybe you'll hate it. And if you hate it, then you hate it. At least hate it because it didn't work. Don't hate it because it's too dark before seeing if the darkness in that movie works. Don't hate it for being too funny before going in and seeing, and just take it for what it is, and does the humor work? Just go in and see what it does. So yes, if they go in and they take a comedic tone with Infinity War, and I don't know that they are or they aren't, but if they are, that doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever. The only thing I care about is by the end of the movie, did we have a good time? Was that an enjoyable viewing experience? Whether that's because it's funny or dire or whatever, I don't care. Just as long as it works by the end. That's all I really care about. Adamus, 95 writes, saw Pacific Rim 2 and going to use the same words you used when you found out Ben Affleck wasn't directing Batman. What the fuck? So disappointed. Yeah, man, I was disappointed with Pacific Rim 2. I had decent hopes for it. I mean, I wasn't super excited about it. The marketing wasn't great. I still don't understand what the point of the movie was. At least Pacific Rim had giant robots fighting giant monsters. This one had the promise of giant robots fighting giant monsters, and then finally at the very end of the movie it happens. And so, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't think Pacific Rim 2 was garbage. I didn't think it was total garbage, but I also didn't think it was good. And I remember I did my review for it and I said, I can't recommend it. I can't recommend it. So I was disappointed. I was hoping for a little bit better, but I think the marketing kind of pointed the way that we probably weren't going to get a masterpiece as it was. Sorry you had to experience that, man. Murray for Us writes, I took your recommendation to watch Jaws 2. It was okay. It was missing the charm of the first film. The franchise set the tone for the movie industry in terms of unnecessary sequels. I mean, that's it's too bad that you didn't like it as much. I thought Jaws 2 was quite good. But hey, that's the beautiful thing about movies is subjectivity. You watch it, didn't quite work as well for you. Don't get me wrong. I've never thought that Jaws 2 was as good as Jaws 1. It's not. If you watch Jaws 1 and then immediately watch Jaws 2, it's a step down for sure. But I still thought on its own, I thought Jaws 2 was a pretty good movie. I enjoy that movie. I think it works pretty well. So it was I believe it was the last one Roy Schneider ever did. I think. I could be wrong about that. I'm just pulling that off the top of my head. I could be dead wrong about that. But yeah, I like Jaws 2. But I'm glad you checked it out. At least now you know you saw it. Believe me when I tell you, you don't need to see Jaws 3. And you certainly don't need to see Jaws 4. So just leave it at that. Master of Odin writes. Did I get the last one? Yes, I did. The Master of Odin writes, hey, if they will do Indiana Jones 6 without Ford, will they return to the Nazis as the main villains? I can only hope. We talked about that on the John Campea show earlier today because Steven Spielberg, for those of you who missed it, made a comment. He said, number one, that he believes, he's pretty sure this is Harrison Ford's last Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones 5 is coming in 2020. And Spielberg was saying, yes, this is most likely Harrison Ford's last one, but Indiana Jones films will continue. So the question is, what do they do with Indiana Jones? And I talked about a few possibilities that they had in front of them. Number one, they can recast him in the, World War II era. The classic Indiana Jones fighting Nazis. That's the Indiana Jones I want. I want Indiana Jones fighting Nazis, right? So they have that option. They also have the option of recasting with the younger Indiana Jones in today's era. Like just rebooting Indiana Jones and saying Indiana Jones is a professor at, I don't know, Yale or whatever, Cambridge today in 2018. Or whenever this movie would come out, 2022, whatever the year is. And it's a modern context, and they start Indiana Jones from a modern context. There could be some upside to that. I'm not going to poo-poo on it too much in advance. I just know that I love my Indy fighting Nazis. And I don't know why. I'm just kind of attached to that. So if they went a newer route, I'd give it a chance, sure. But deep down, what I really want is him back in the World War II era. Because to me, that's when I think about the Indiana Jones adventures. But I don't know. Maybe you guys have different theories. Show them in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. All right. Luke1234 writes, if movie studios start putting out their own streaming services, do you think in 30 years theaters will become obsolete? Why go out when I can stay home? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons there. Number one, I go out because to me, nothing is better than the movie-going experience. To me, going to the movies is the most fun thing I can do outside the house. I love going to the movies. I love getting together with an audience of 300 strangers and all of us as people sitting down and watching this movie together. To me, it's an event. I love going to the movies completely. That's why I go so often. That's why I go to movies that I've already seen 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times if I like it. Like, because I love going to the movies. It's way better than watching a movie at home. Way better. That's just my opinion. Now, we already see that certain studios are starting their own streaming services. Disney's starting their own streaming service. Warner Brothers is launching several of their own streaming services, yada, yada, yada. But here's the thing. They always will make more money. They will always make more money with their movies in theaters. That's where the money is. That's why movie studios don't want the movie-going experience to disappear. Now, they would love it if they could put a movie in theaters, make all the money, and then put it out on home video 3 weeks later. But movie theater chains, understandable, won't let them do that. Plus, it would destroy their own business. That's where they will always make their money. Home video does not make nearly as much money as people seem to think it does. It just doesn't. So there's that. There's money to be made in the streaming services, all that kind of stuff, but it's going to become a balancing act for these studios to balance managing their theatrical business with their streaming business. And still trying, because the whole streaming thing is not meant, doesn't mean it won't replace it, but it's not meant to replace the theatrical experience. It's meant to replace the traditional television experience. That's what the streaming services are really there to kind of not necessarily replace. What's the word I'm looking for? Disrupt. It's the traditional television experience that streaming services are really there to disrupt, not the theatrical experience. Now, it may disrupt the theatrical experience, for sure. It very well could. But studios don't want it to, because studios make a lot of money with their theatrical business. That's where they make the lion's share of their money. So it's going to be interesting to see how that comes about. But what's going to happen is Disney's going to have a streaming service, and they're going to put out the next Avengers movie, but it's not going to be on the streaming service. It's going to be in theaters. And then it's going to stay in theaters for 3 to 4 months, and then it'll be available on their streaming service. But that's like that now. A movie's in theaters, is there for 3 or 4 months, and then it's available on digital streaming, on Amazon, on Netflix, on Hulu, on Google Play, on Vudu, whatever your streaming service of choice is, and then it's available a few months later. Disney's going to continue doing that. So will Warner Brothers. Disney's, like, don't get me wrong, there are some people who think that Disney's going to put out Spider-Man Homecoming 2, and it's going to be in theaters and on the streaming service at the same time because it's owned by Disney, right? No. That's not the way it's going to work. It's going to be in theaters. And that's where it's going to be. And then after a few months, after it's done its theatrical run, just like today, then it'll be available on the streaming services. Actually, Spider-Man Homecoming may not be available on the Disney streaming service because Disney doesn't actually have the rights to it. Sony does. So that was a bad example. The Spider-Man Homecoming one was a bad example. Fine. But let's say, I don't know, let's say Doctor Strange 3. Okay, Doctor Strange 3 comes out in 2024. All right, I'm just making something up here. But what'll happen there is that it's not going to hit theaters and then be on the Disney streaming service at the same time. That's not how it's going to work. Disney's going to put it in theaters. It's going to have its full theatrical run. And then 3 to 4 months after it hits theaters, then it'll be available on home marketing, whether it's through the Disney service or Netflix or whatever else, blah, 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 blah. But that's the same way it is today. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. Now, when you mention 30 years from now, well, anything. I mean, the Earth may not be here in 30 years. I mean, so I don't know. There may be no such thing as streaming services in 30 years. We don't know. If you're going to go that far in advance, I mean, who knows what's going to happen then. But in the immediate future, I don't see too much disruption happening at this point, just because of the way they make their money. That's just the way I see it. Could be wrong. What do you guys think? Jump in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. I'm not the foremost expert in the world on this just because I thought that. Who cares what I think? What do you guys think? Jump down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Okay, next one. Luke Woodard writes, "Hey, John, did you used to want to be a preacher/pastor? Talking about seminary, I think that would be cool. You practically already preach about movies." No, I went to Bible college. I worked in church circles for a while. I did do all that. I had... and I don't want to get into too much personal stuff here, but I still have very much a religious belief. I do. But I found myself differing with the Christian church a little bit too much on things. I'll be straight up. Not that anybody's here for religion talk or anything like this, but the basic, if you want to know more about this, follow me on social media. The basic thing is this. I don't believe that the church in North America today... I think the Christian evangelical church in North America today completely hates Jesus. That's the way I see it. Because they stand for things that Jesus would never stand for. And they are the complete opposite of a lot of things that the teachings of Jesus were all about. And I looked at that and said, I can't be a part of that anymore. That's not me poo-pooing anybody else who does. I have great respect for people of faith and a lot of different faiths. But yeah, it was just at that point that went, I need to take a different, I can't be part of this. And I took a different direction in my life. And, I did visual effects, I did movies, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm at right now. Let's see. Murray for Us writes, will Del Toro's character in The Last Jedi reappear in episode 9? I hope not. I think he will. You don't get Benicio Del Toro in there unless you have longer term plans for him, but I'll be honest with you, I hated the character. I came out of The Last Jedi criticizing certain elements of the movie. I really enjoy the movie. I like The Last Jedi. But that doesn't mean there aren't things that I had real problems with. And the Benicio Del Toro character is one of those problems. So, yep, I think he's going to be in episode 9. I don't want him to be. And that's no knock on Benicio Del Toro, the actor. It's just the character was useless. Useless character. So, I have no desire to see him back, but he probably will be. Guzz Off My Daddy writes, Okay, Rey's parents are nobody, but why tease in The Force Awakens? They never did. I've always said from the beginning, if you go back and watch my videos going years back, I said from the beginning, The Force Awakens, I've said this from day one, The Force Awakens makes it crystal clear that her parents aren't anybody. I've said that forever. I said when I watched The Force Awakens, I came out, oh, that was crystal clear. The movie made it abundantly clear her parents weren't anybody of note. Particularly, she wasn't Skywalker's kid. Like that, I mean, Maz Kanata came right out and said it, that she wasn't Skywalker's kid. Like, you want to know about your parents, but you know what? Your parents are behind you. You need to start looking in front of you. What's in front of you? Luke. Luke's in front of you. Parents behind you, Luke in front of you. Luke is not the parent. I mean, they spilled it out. And I remember I get so frustrated talking to my fellow buddies and Star Wars fans who would still say, no, I bet she's a Skywalker. I'm like, were you not watching the same movie? The Force Awakens made it abundantly clear she is not a Skywalker. I made a video about it too, about how that one scene between Rey and Maz Kanata made it crystal clear, just so there would be no confusion. She's not Skywalker's kid, and yet my fellow Star Wars fans constantly still went on about, I wonder if she's Luke's daughter. I bet she's Luke's daughter. It's like the movie practically wrote it on a hand invitation and delivered it to your house with a singing telegram saying, Rey's not Luke's kid, and yet we still didn't listen. People still wanted to hold on to their theories. There was no tease. And I tried to say that for years. This is making it pretty clear. Now, here's the thing, too. The fact that her parents are nobody is the best revelation, because it completely usurps this underlying need. Look, for thousands of generations, Jedi didn't have to come from lineage. As a matter of fact, they didn't come from lineage because Jedis never made it. Jedis just came from nothing. And here you had what makes Rey's parentage so special. And I've talked about some things I hated about The Last Jedi. This is one of the things I loved about The Last Jedi. One of the things that make Rey's lineage so special is that goes to the naivete and the flaws and the weaknesses of the Rey character. Like, she's this kid who desperately believes someday my parents are coming back. My parents didn't just abandon me. They're coming back, and I need to be there when they're going to come back. And it's just this denial she's been in her whole life. And the fact that it comes out that her parents were nobody, that I believe that enriches the character a ton. It's consistent with what they did in The Force Awakens. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just the way I see it. I mean, if you feel that The Force Awakens was teasing that her parents were special, I don't know what to tell you. If that's how the movie hit you, that's how the movie hit you. All I can do is that it says that I was screaming for years till I was blue in the face. Her parents aren't anyone. I mean, if anything, I started to give a little bit of credence to the idea that maybe she was a Kenobi. Maybe she's a granddaughter of Kenobi, whatever. I started to believe that maybe there are some of these... Oops, sorry about that, guys. I started to believe that maybe there's a possibility that there could be some connection between her and some other character in Star Wars. But what was 100% clear was that she was no Skywalker. That was clear. And if she ended up being a distant relative of Lando, or whether she ended up being a distant relative of Chewbacca, or whether she ended up being a distant relative of Obi-Wan, hey, I was open to all of that. Like, there were different theories that came out and say, hey, there could be some to that. I could be convinced of that. But the one thing that was clear is that she was no Skywalker. And I think the decision to make her a child of nobody was the best decision. Because why the hell do we need this? Oh, she has to be the princess. Well, why is it every time? Why, if there's any hero, they have to be descended from a king, or they have to be related to the magical space wizard, or they have to be this, or they have to be that. Boring. Done every single time in every single kind of movie. Just textbook. Make her the kid of nobody. She was selected by the Force like thousands of generations of Jedi before her. Anyway, that's why it worked for me. So no, there was no tease, in my opinion, at any rate. And if you felt that, that's the way the movie hit you. I'm not poo-pooing on that. But I'm just saying, I have been saying for years that she wasn't anybody. But anyway, but nobody would listen to me. Murray for Us writes, which Cinemia plan do you have? I have like the top of the line Cinemia plan. So I have like the $30 a month one, which is 3 movies per month with me and a guest. So, and I think I paid for it all up front. Like I just bought it outright. Cause I hate paying monthly payment plans. So I just bought it. I think I paid like $328 or something like that. Basically works out to be about $30 a month. And again, it gets me 3 movies. That includes an AMC Prime movie or an IMAX one if I want. Plus I get to bring a +1 with me. And I get to buy my tickets online in advance and select my seats in advance. So that's the plan that I have. I love it. Absolutely love it. Pretzel Dust on My Balls. I love these names. Best Super Bowl halftime show. Well, you already knew what I was going to say. U2 is the hardest. Yeah, U2 halftime show is my favorite one. There have been some really good halftime shows the last couple of years. I'm not even a really big, what's the name of the girl who sings Fireworks? Baby, you're a firework. I'm not even, she's the one who sang California Girls. Anyway, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But her halftime show a couple years ago with the Bad Dancing Fish or whatever it was, that was actually a really good halftime show. I'm not even a big fan, but I like that halftime show. That was a good one. Yeah, there were a number of really good, but the U2 one, the U2 one is the one that's always going to stand out to me. Master of Odin writes, I saw that Infinity War box office projections were estimated around 200 million. Who makes these projections and what's it based on? Well, I mean, a lot of different people can do different projections, but basically there are organizations that just track media consumption. They take polls, they do all this kind of stuff, and they round up the tracking. Now, the reality is these tracking things 95% of the time are pretty much bang on the money. Give or take 5 or 10%. But 95% of the time, they're just bang on the money. What happens is that you get some people that go, tracking's never right. It's like, no, it's almost always right. Well, remember Deadpool? Okay, yes, 1 out of every, 40 or 50 movies, they'll be off by a bit. That's why I say it's about 95% of the time they'll be bang on. But the tracking is usually pretty accurate. And there are some good examples of the 5% when it's not. There definitely are. But it's done by a lot. Sometimes the studios do their own tracking. There are industry bodies that do the tracking as well. There are some independent third-party bodies that do tracking as well. They're all usually pretty much come to the same conclusions about what it's going to come up with. Now, here's the interesting thing. At $200 million, let's say they're right on the money, give or take 5 or 10%. Okay, but here's the interesting thing. 5 or 10% of 200 million can be a difference of $40 million. Guess what? That means even if the tracking is right within 5 or 10%, even if the tracking is right, that means it could conceivably be around or just a bit over 240. Because that's still within that kind of 10% margin range, right? So even though it's tracking for 200, it could conceivably beat the opening weekend box office record of Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's conceivable. So, I mean, and I've been saying that I don't believe it will beat The Force Awakens, but these tracking numbers, where there are some people seeing these tracking numbers and going, oh, that means it definitely won't beat The Force Awakens. To me, it's the opposite. To me, these tracking numbers are telling me, oh my gosh, it's actually more realistic than I thought that it could beat The Force Awakens track. I mean, it's all Disney, so Disney wins either way. But to me, these numbers, given that 5 to 10% flex range you want to give it, that means that record is within the margin of error. It very well could beat The Force Awakens now. I've really, for the longest time, never believed it would. And maybe it still won't. But it's more possible today after seeing these tracking numbers than I think it was yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see. Anthony R. writes, Spider-Man for PS4 is coming September 7th. I'm so excited. I pre-ordered my collector's edition. It comes with a Spider-Man statue from Gentle... Really? That's a nice bonus. Getting a statue from Gentle Giant is a really nice bonus. You know, besides the Hot Toys stuff, Gentle Giant makes some really good stuff. Hot Toys is still my favorite, but Gentle Giants, they put out some really, really good stuff. That's really cool. Do me a favor, Anthony, when you get that, do me a favor and email me a picture. You guys know my email address, john@thejohncampeashow.com. Email me a picture of that, because I'd love to see it. I'd like to see what it is you're getting, especially if it's from Gentle Giant. Stefan Gonzalez writes, when you read comics, do you have certain people's voicing the characters in your head? For example, I have to read Batman comics with Kevin Conroy's voice. Depends on the comic. I think if it's of a property that's had a television or a movie incarnations, I think it's just natural for us to have that voice in our head. I know when I read Batman, I kind of hear Ben Affleck's voice in my head. And before that, I had Christian Bale's voice in my head. I've never had Kevin Conroy's voice in my head. Don't know why. I love the Batman animated stuff, but never had his voice in my head. But I think that's kind of normal. Certainly when I read J. Jonah, I have JK's. I have JK's voice in my head for sure whenever I read J. Jonah. And it goes on and on and on like that. So I think that's a totally normal thing. Anthony R. follows up with, if Nolan had decided to continue Batman movies in his universe, would you have been excited to see more stories alongside the separate DCEU? I don't know. I mean, one of the things that Christopher Nolan was pretty adamant he didn't want other DC movies going the same time his was. I had heard that one of the things, remember George Miller had that Justice League movie that was going and Armie Hammer was going to be Batman? I have always heard that behind the scenes, one of the things that really derailed that was the fact that Christopher Nolan did not want them doing another Batman while his Batman was going on. And that was one of the big things that derailed it. Now, I've never heard the studio confirm that. So take that as a rumor. I'm just saying I've constantly heard that was behind the scenes. That was one of the big things. So I don't know. No, I don't think, I think if Nolan had continued, I don't think there would have been a DCEU. I think for there to be a DCEU, Nolan had to be done and finish this thing. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. The number Thor writes, hey, sorry for yesterday, John. My question, I don't even know what we're talking about, number Thor, so don't bother apologizing. Hey, sorry for yesterday, John. My question as what was the best werewolf movie that's not American Werewolf? I love Dog Soldiers and Benicio's Wolfman. Your thoughts? Don't have a lot of favorite Wolfman movies. Obviously the Wolfman with Del Toro's one. What's another one with a good Wolfman in it? There's probably 5 of them if I sit down and think about it later that I could think of, but not a lot off the top of my head. So yeah, not many of them. And I didn't even really love Benicio del Toro's Wolfman, to be honest with you. So yeah, American Werewolf in London is pretty much the big one for me. That's the only one that really stands out to me. Anthony follows up. Don't know how familiar you are with the PS1 era, but exciting news dropped today. Spyro, the Dragon Trilogy, is getting an HD remaster. Gamers are stoked. You know what's funny? I've seen that all over my social media feeds. I do not know what Spyro is. I had a PS1, but I still don't know what Spyro is. But it was funny because I saw everybody posting, oh my God, they're doing an HD remaster of Spyro. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but everybody seems pretty happy about it. So I'm super excited for people who are super excited about it. Again, it's not something I'm really familiar with, but a lot of people, especially on my social media feeds, were very pumped about that. Really pumped. Okay. Number Thor writes, do you remember the movie Mighty Joe Young, and what are your thoughts on it? Oh, is it the King Kong ripoff kind of movie with Charlize Theron? Was it Charlize Theron? I think it was Charlize Theron in that. If I remember correctly, and it's been a long time since I saw that. I want to say it came out in 2000? Maybe even before that. That movie's got to be getting close to like 30 years old at any point. It's got to be getting close or 20 years old, I gotta say. It's gotta be getting close to 20 years old. I don't remember liking it that much. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't remember liking it that much. So I think I remember it. If it's the same one, you know what? Let me forget all the speculate. Let me just bring it. I think it's the one that's Charlize Theron that we're talking about here. Mighty Joe Young, IMDb. Yeah, 1998. It was 20 years ago. 1998, Charlize Theron and Bill Paxton. That's right. Bill Paxton was in that. Regina King was in that one too. That is the right one. Didn't love it. Gotta be honest with you, did not love that movie, to be honest. And if you were to ask me, well, why, John? It's probably been 19 years since I've seen it. Because that's not one, I remember not liking it enough that I never went back and watched it again, and I never rented it or anything like that. So maybe if I watched it today, I would appreciate it more, but I just remember not being all that impressed with it. Let's see. And I lost it. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Degoto One writes, it was just announced Sola will premiere at the Cannes Film Festival May 15th. Does that mean they're confident? I don't think so. I mean, look, I'm a big Star Wars guy and all that kind of stuff, but premiering it at Cannes, that's just a big film festival. That's just big pop you can get. I don't necessarily think it means they're showing confidence. Here's what I think. I think it means they don't think the movie's a disaster. Because you play a movie at Cannes, audiences at Cannes, at the Cannes Film Fest, are notorious for booing films and walking out of them. So I think it at least tells us that Disney doesn't think it's terrible. But I don't necessarily think it means they think it's great either. So I don't read it as being a necessarily positive thing. Remember, I'm the Star Wars guy. I mean, I want to see everything positively if I can about Star Wars, but the reality is I don't see this as a sign of big confidence. I think maybe it suggests that maybe they don't think it sucks, but even if they think it's a mediocre movie, I think they'd still play it there because it's one of the biggest, most famous film festivals in the world. It's marketing, it's all that kind of stuff. I can see that, but honestly, I don't take it as a big sign of confidence. I don't take it as a bad sign either, but I just don't really take it as anything, to be honest with you. All right. Next one calls Zombitron 5678 writes, as a Canadian, what stereotypes have you heard, eh? Any that are true? Do you guys really leave your doors unlocked? And I can tell, well, not every single Canadian leaves their doors unlocked, but yeah, a lot of us do. Look, my neighborhood growing up, we never locked our doors. Never locked our doors. I just never did. Even when I lived in my own apartment and stuff like that, I very rarely would ever lock my doors. I don't even lock the doors to my car. I don't. Look, the way I always figure, if somebody wants into my house badly enough, a locked door is not going to stop them. So I'd rather them just walk in the door and not bust my window to get in. Thank you very much. Because then I'm going to be out whatever they steal, plus I got to pay $500 for a broken window. I remember this one time. It was back when I was working at the visual effects company, and we were pulling like 72-hour straight shift trying to get this deadline done, right? And it was like 2 a.m, and we decided we often made 7-Eleven runs to get Slurpees. I mean, we did Slurpee runs and Dorito runs all the time. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to make a Dorito run. Now, earlier in the day, we had a client give us, I kid you not, a VHS tape with some footage that they needed CGI, or basically composited into this other thing for this ad that we were making, right? So I had run out earlier that day to a pawn shop and for $15 bought an old VCR. Great. I had it in my car in the parking lot, 2 a.m. I don't know why I had locked my car, but I did. I locked my car. So we go downstairs at 2 a.m. to make a quick run to 7-Eleven, and the window in my car is smashed. And what they took was the $15 VCR. I ended up paying almost $200 to replace the window so they could take the $15 VCR. And I don't even know why I locked my door that night, but I remember thinking to myself, there's just no point in locking my car door. There's just no point. If somebody wants into my car to get it, they're just going to break a window, or they're going to screw up my lock and cost me $500 repair job. Look, you want to come in and get something that's worth $40 or $50? be my guest. Just please don't leave me something with a $500 repair bill that I got to deal with later. You know what I mean? So I just don't leave anything valuable in my car. But yeah, the Canadian thing is true. Like, I don't lock doors. We trust our neighbors. We know our neighbors. Growing up in the neighborhoods in Canada, like, we are very friendly, polite people. But we joked about this before, like, not getting into details, but like, we also took care of business. Like, you steal from somebody in one of our neighborhoods, the neighborhood took care of that. Somebody, there was this college-age dude in our neighborhood, found out he was hitting a girl. Neighborhood took care of it. We're very polite people, but you don't want to fuck with us either. And so we live in, like, for most parts of society in Canada, yeah. We just know each other. We trust each other. We believe in the goodness of humanity. We don't lock our doors. I mean, it's Canada. I mean, it's a totally foreign thought here, but I mean, that's just kind of, those are the neighborhoods I grew up in. That's just the neighborhoods we grew up in. Anyway, Dennis Riaz writes, Avengers 4 Rise of the Iron Spider only. That's the important part there, Dennis. Only in 3D. That's the key. It's got to be in 3D and only in 3D. The number Thor writes, thoughts on the show Blue Blood. Never watched a single episode. I can't comment on it. Never watched a single episode. Luna Comics writes, is the Dark Universe dead or are they still making movies? That's a question that's been coming in a lot. And it's an understandable question. It is one of the biggest, oh my God. Like, I love Universal Studios. I do. But the way they managed the whole Dark Universe, Monsters Universe thing is going to be taught in film business school in the future of how to do things wrong. Because before they even had one movie out, they announced like 4 or 5 other movies, taking these promo shots with all these big superstars posing together, like they got so far ahead of themselves. And when the mummy didn't flop, but when it didn't do anywhere near as good as they were hoping, it just made them with a lot of egg on their face. I have all the respect in the world for Universal Studios. I'm a big fan of Universal Studios, but they really mismanaged that whole Monsters Universe thing. I think it's done. Alex Kurtzman, who kind of was shepherding that whole thing, he's gone. The other guy was doing it with him as well. He's gone. There's been absolutely no movement on anything at this point. And no one's told me this. This is just me speculating, just to be clear. I'm just speculating here as a fan. At this point, what I think is happening is Universal is just quietly hoping it goes away and just nobody talks about it anymore. Just stay quiet on it and eventually people will stop asking. And I think it's dead. Now, someday they may try to resurrect it again, whether that's in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, but it won't be this same Dark Universe. I think they're done with it. I think they realized they completely screwed the pooch on it. It's too bad. I'm one of the few guys that I actually didn't mind The Mummy. I kind of liked The Mummy. It had its bad points, and I've got my criticisms of it, and I didn't love it. But I kind of dug it. I thought it had enough upside that it was enjoyable. Did some really stupid things, but I thought the good outweighed the bad, but that's just me. I might be in the minority on that, and that's fine. But they clearly did not launch the cinematic universe with the launch that they were hoping for. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, there's that. So I think it's done, Luna. I think it's done. Could be wrong, but I think it's done. Rose Ryan just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Rose. ZOMG Ruler writes, John, I can't handle seeing cats killed in movies. I have no problem seeing cats killed in movies. I'm not a big cat guy, even though I've known some cats that I've liked. We've had a family cat with my family for a long time. There are some cats I like. For the most part, when somebody says to me, oh, I have a cat, usually my first reaction is, really, how long have you had this problem? That's usually, I'm a dog guy. Why anybody would have a cat instead of a dog is completely beyond me. No insult to any of you guys who are cat people, because I'm sure you feel the exact same way, but opposite. But as a dog person, I don't understand why anybody would have a cat. So I have no problem watching cats die as a movie. I have a real problem watching dogs die in movies, so I can totally relate with you on that. I have a massive hard time watching dogs die. You know what? It's still the funniest thing in the world to me. watching John Wick, it's funny because I remember sitting in this theater, right? And like everybody was like, oh, John Wick gets beaten up, and oh, like you could feel like, oh wow, they're really gonna piss off John Wick. It's a bad idea. I wonder what's gonna happen. Blah 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 blah. And like there would be like little old ladies sitting over here, and there could be like a pack of nuns sitting over here, right? The moment the guys in John Wick killed that dog, right? The moment they killed that dog, like the pack of nuns is going from like, oh, poor John Wick, to when they killed the dog, to those fuckers gotta die. Those fuckers gotta die. Like it's crazy when you're in an audience, right? And seeing that switch vroom, goes like the audience, you want to get the audience emotionally invested in the vengeance of the hero. Like I kid you not, I saw that horrible Death Wish remake with Bruce Willis not long ago, and it's like, oh, his wife got murdered, and his daughter was put in a coma, and like, okay, yeah, you're trying to get the audience to emotionally connect with the feeling of rage and vengeance that the hero would have. Yeah, okay, yeah, blah blah blah. They killed that puppy in John Wick. Everybody in that movie theater turned into like some kind of murderous rage. Like they wanted to kill somebody. They killed that dog, and all of a sudden, all these people in this audience, they wanted to physically kill someone. They wanted to step through that movie screen, get their hands on the villain, and choke the life out of him. Like, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen that type of an emotional response to a cat dying in a movie. Now all the cat owners are just clicking the dislike button like crazy. I can live with that. That's fine. But, I mean, I've never seen that kind of response to a death of a cat. Like, that's why in The Shape of Water, when the monster eats the head off the cat, I'm like, yay! But if he had done it to a dog, I probably would have been aghast. So, totally double standard, completely. But I can totally relate with you because, yeah, I can't handle dogs dying in movies either. Totally went off on a side note there. Sorry about that, guys. Holy crap, look at the time. I thought it was like we were 30 minutes in, but we're almost done the entire hour. Okay. Pedro Garcia writes, how was your first experience watching The Exorcist? Oh, freaky, because I was like a little kid. I cannot remember for the life of me how I managed to watch The Exorcist. I think I was at a friend's house who had a VHS copy or something. And I think that was my first experience watching it, and it freaked the hell out of me. Like, totally freaked the hell out of me. Absolutely it did. It was, yeah, not a healthy experience. Not a chance. Sayantan Biswas writes, Ready Player One is canceled all over India. No clear explanation why. No idea when it'll reopen. I want to watch it. You know what, man? I've been getting lots of text messages and tweets and emails from people that were mentioning that out of nowhere, Warner Brothers just pulled Ready Player One and just weren't showing it in India. And as I know, I didn't do a lot of research into it. I remember I took a second and started reading around. I just found more reports about it, about the fact that it was being pulled out of theaters in India and not showing in India. And to this day, I've never heard about why. That's an interesting question. I mean, listen, if you guys have found any kind of explanation been given about why the market in India had Ready Player One pulled out, please share links in the description below. I would love to find out why, because and I haven't devoted a lot of time to looking into it, but please let us know. I would love to hear why. Okay, Krieger119 writes, more about Conor McGregor. Is Conor McGregor going crazy or what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he thought it would be a funny publicity stunt, but there was nothing funny about it. And again, I thought it was a stunt. Like, Dennis texted me earlier today, and like Dennis texted, did you hear about this? And I had not heard about it. I'm like, and I just said, Dennis texted just saying basically, Conor invaded an event at the Barclays Center, brought a bunch of goons with him, started throwing things around, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, publicity stunt. And then I saw the video, and I'm like, oh, this dude's got to be done. Yeah, don't ever let this guy near MMA again. He's an embarrassment to the sport. Andrew Hogue writes, see what's going on with more. Yep. Seeing what's going on with Conor McGregor, man. I'm done with the guy. Owen Curtis writes, PTA, I'm assuming you mean Paul Thomas Anderson, makes great movies, but they rarely make profit. Why do studios keep funding his projects if they're likely to lose money? Well, because I don't think they are likely to lose money, to be honest with you. I think he also makes them for fairly reasonable budgets. Like, none of his movies are like big, huge, monstrously expensive movies to make. So they only need to do certain well in the theaters, and they need to do a little bit of extra business in the home video market, and then they're fine. So I think you're going to see that his movies probably don't lose them any money. They probably make a little bit. And hey, if you're pretty much guaranteed that every time we invest in this, we make a little bit of money, then you'll probably keep investing in it. And if it brings more prestige to your studio, because you got a PTA movie coming out, you got a Paul Thomas Anderson movie coming out, all the better. I mean, all the better. It's good for your studio. All right. Matthias Peterson writes, "Hey, John, did you watch any of the 80s action shows? My favorite was Airwolf. It used to bring my family together on the couch when it aired. Yeah, I loved Airwolf. And it's still to this day, might be the best television theme music ever. I mean, the Airwolf song, the Airwolf music, it was great. And you had Ernest Borgnine in there and Jan Michael Vincent, or was it Jan? I've never known if it was Jan Michael Vincent or Jan Michael Vincent. I don't care, whatever. I loved Airwolf. But yeah, a lot of shows I watched as a kid. I watched Airwolf. Definitely watched Knight Rider. Obviously, I watched the A-Team. I mean, the A-Team was it. Me and my friends used to run around playing A-Team all the time. Let's see, what else? I got into Simon and Simon a little bit when I was a kid too. But yeah, I used to love those shows. But Airwolf is definitely one of the standout ones for sure. Laurie Scott writes, "Love The Last Starfighter." Absolutely. Last Starfighter, so good. And I've read Armada. They're not as similar as they sound on the surface. There's definitely room for both movies. See, that's good to hear, because for those of you who didn't hear the announcement, the guy who wrote Armada is the same guy who wrote the book Ready Player One, Ernest Cline, right? And we talked about this on the show the other day, but they just signed a deal to turn another one of his books, Armada, into a movie. And the description is, this kid is playing a video game, but the video game is actually a test to see who can be a great fighter pilot. And it's like, so basically The Last Starfighter? Basically? But I haven't read the book. So it's good to hear from somebody, Laurie, that has read the book and saying there's not actually a lot of similarities, which then ironically, and I don't think it's a coincidence, earlier today, Gary Whitta, the screenwriter for Rogue One, put out a tweet today saying, hey, I'm actually working on a Last Starfighter reboot, which I'm like, yay! Anyway, so it's good to hear, Laurie. Thanks for letting me know about that. Dim-Sum05 writes, "Dine in theaters, the replacement for concessions. Is this the right thing for theaters to do? Better profit, higher quality?" I don't know. I love dine-in theaters, particularly AMC dine-in theaters. I've only been able to go to them like 3 times, and I loved it every time I've gone. I don't know if they're meant to be replacements for the more traditional theater with a concession stand, but rather an addition, You can go to one, because they're different experiences. You go to one to the dine-in theater, get your table in front of you, you recline in your seat, the wait staff bring you your food, refilling your popcorn, give you a blanket, all that kind of stuff. I just think it's meant to be a different kind of experience. So I think it's meant to be a complementary thing, not necessarily a replacement thing. So, yeah, I don't know. But look, I do know this. If it wasn't for the fact that I had a 45-minute drive to get to the closest dine-in theater, I would probably go to the dine-in theater every time. So maybe that goes to your point. Maybe. But the only reason I haven't gone more is because I've got a giant major movie theater, 10-minute walk up the road from my house, versus a 45-minute drive to go to the closest dine-in theater. I'm probably going to choose the 10-minute walk up the street from my house. But yeah, maybe if I had one within the same distance of that other one, I'd probably go to the dine-in theater almost every time. So much fun. Let's see. Laurie Scott writes, "Have you seen the trailer for Upgrade?" Wow. Yes, I have. And I meant to talk about it on the John Campea show today, but the story got bumped for another one. Oh my God. If you guys haven't seen the trailer, particularly the Red Band trailer for Upgrade, go on YouTube, and we're going to be done here in just a minute. Go on YouTube, search Upgrade Red Band trailer, sit back and take it in. It looks amazing. It looks so good. I am very excited for this movie. I cannot wait to watch it. All right, last two questions. And this one comes to us from Ben Lorenowitz, who writes, can you think of another franchise with more screen time than Star Trek? Seven season series, 3 years of an animated series, 5 years of Enterprise, Discovery, and now, and 13 movies. Simpsons. Yeah, maybe Simpsons. I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know. Probably the most, it might be Star Trek. I mean, that might be it. It could be a very good, if you combine all the different franchises and all the series and combine it all into one big thing. Simpsons, how many seasons has The Simpsons been on TV? Hold on a second. How many seasons has The Simpsons been on? Okay, let me just look this up here quick. It's going into its 30th year. So 30 years. Yeah, and you know what? Simpsons might beat it for screen time. The Simpsons might beat it for screen time. Not 100% sure about that, but I'd have to bring out a calculator and do some math, maybe that, but if not, then it probably is Star Trek. As long as you're not counting like news programs or anything like that, then it might be Star Trek for sure. That's a really interesting, that's a good trivia question actually right there. All right, final question of the day. The number Thor writes, I love the original A-Team show, but hate the movie. Do you think we could ever get a TV reboot with a new cast or a movie with the original cast back? Well, you can't get the original cast back. I know George Papard died, but just recast Hannibal. Your thoughts? Nah, you can't do an A-Team with the original cast at this point. No. I got a kick out of the movie. I liked the movie. I didn't love it. It didn't live up to the TV show for me, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I certainly liked the cast. I thought it was casted pretty well. Could they do a reboot it again or revisit it again? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think the A-Team is still kind of a beloved and recognized property and name that you could probably do something like that. Whether it will happen or not, who knows? But I'd be on board. I'd totally be on board. All right, guys, that's all the time I have for today. Listen, if any of you guys have sent in questions that I didn't have time to answer, don't worry about it. I'm going to take all these questions you guys sent in, and I'm going to use them on tomorrow's companion video. So just watch for the companion video tomorrow, and your questions that got sent in will be put on there. I have run out of time here for today. Listen, that'll do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until, of course, my next video, bye-bye.